Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we interview some of the most interesting people that have said yes to opportunities in their life. We hope that through these stories, you can learn to create your own destiny by saying yes along the way. Join us as we explore the new series covering topics such as passion, integrity, and hard work. I'm your host, Jim Riley, and I hope you enjoy these interviews as much as I do. I believe that everyone has an important message worth hearing. Hello, welcome back to the show. Thanks for tuning in. You know, living in Montana, I didn't think one of the topics that I'd be encountering a lot up here is energy and our renewable resources. But they call Montana the treasure state for a reason, and that's because we have some of the most resources in the world right here in our backyard. And we've had an elected official come up for re-election. That's the Public Service Commissioner. And I've got a friend, her name is Annie Bukacek. If you're in Montana, look her up. She's running for that role. She won the primary. And it's just amazing what's come out of the woodwork in terms of this position and the interest and everybody's opinions about who should be there and who shouldn't be there. But I'll tell you right now, Annie is a student of learning, and she's already proven that she knows so much about our needs here as it relates to energy and all the things that role encounters. So look her up if you're listening to the show, which has put energy on my radar. And today I've got Bill Nussey on the line to talk about energy and his new book. Bill, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, Jim, thanks for having me. It's energy is the hottest topic in the country right now in many ways. So really glad to talk about it and hopefully give you guys some interesting perspectives that aren't as mainstream as some of the things you're reading about.
I want to hear it. But randomly, I just drove back from California, made the 18-hour drive south for 2 business meetings and turned around and drove back 18 hours. Used a little fuel. but here's what I can't figure out. And this isn't a knock to the wind energy that, is growing around the country, right? But on that long drive, I passed several caravans of semi trucks hauling massive pieces of this one wind turbine. And I knew it was just one because, there's the base, there's the next piece of the base, the next piece, and then one blade. It takes like 4 semis just to carry one blade. I can't even believe how they pull into parking lots. I was like, how much energy are they using just to get that wind turbine wherever they're going?
I hear you. It's, we've done a lot of research for this book, and it turns out most ways you generate energy, whether it's wind, solar, oil, gas, coal, takes kind of the same amount of work to build a power plant. Mm-hmm. It's kind of funny because they all work differently, but it takes the same amount of materials and energy to do it. Whether you have to truck turbines around or you're pouring cement for nuclear, it ends up being pretty close when you're all done. It's kind of interesting.
Well, when you're driving for 18 hours, your mind kind of wanders. And I was thinking, most of those wind turbines I see are in fields of like 100 or more. It's like, how many semis did it take to get all those wind turbines there? But I'm digressing, probably in a topic we're not going to cover, but I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, wind is amazing, and now everyone's talking about putting wind turbines offshore because the bigger they are, the more efficient they are. So everyone's fighting, wrestling, cajoling to get them offshore because you can make them really big.
Yeah.
And then you just use a boat.
Yeah.
So no more highway log jams with turbines. We'll see. We'll see how that works out. But that's the future, they tell me.
Well, look, your bio, and I'm gonna read it just so people can get some background on you. But I'd love for you to touch on it and talk about how you got there. So, you're a career tech CEO with multiple exits, including an IPO. You worked at Greylock as a venture capitalist, and after selling your marketing tech company Silverpop to IBM, you shifted roles to help lead IBM's global strategy for their CEO and SVPs. And then you've spent the last few years creating media ventures in climate tech. And you started with a TED Talk, which grew into a #1 ranked podcast on renewable energy. And you've got a new book out, Freeing Energy, which is a practical guide for disrupting and democratizing energy. That's a mouthful, but tell us how you got there.
I mean, I'm like an energy nerd, right? I find all the techie stuff super interesting and spent. But listen, I had some good fortune in my life professionally, and I got to tell you, we ended up giving away the biggest bulk of the money I made from some of the good fortune I've had in exiting businesses. So I actually had to get a job, but I wanted to do something that really mattered. I wanted to do something that was bigger than me. And so I started this process, and and it ended up with the clean energy was like the coolest, most interesting, impactful, and frankly, one of the biggest business opportunities that I'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm old enough to have been around for the rise of personal computers, the rise of the internet, the rise of smartphones. And so clean energy, in my view, and basically the reason I wrote all this down in a book is that it's just an enormous business opportunity. And it's cool for really three reasons. One is that whether you're concerned about climate change or not, the fact is that the energy systems we have today are polluting the crap out of the world. I mean, you just some of the things I've seen, coal plants, it's just we can do better.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, I didn't know this, man, but there's like a billion people that have no electricity at all, and it's easy to put them out of mind. But I went and visited them. I sat down with them and wrote about it. And these weren't desperate people. They weren't angry. They were just like, hey, just give us a break and give us a chance. And so these clean energy systems, the small ones, can change their life. And the last thing, and I'll give you a number on it. The clean energy is the largest business opportunity in the history of the world.
Mm.
I mean, like here are quick numbers, right? If you think about the largest infrastructure project in the U.S., most people correctly guess the highway system, about $550 billion over 30 years in 2020 dollars. Interesting number. If you look at all venture capital investments globally for the last 25 years, it's even bigger. It's at $1 trillion. The last 25 years, from Netscape to Google, $1 trillion has gone into that industry, and Tesla and every other company. The smallest estimate for clean energy for the next 25 years is $17 trillion.
Mm. Wow.
And it's likely to be 4 or 5 times higher than that. So literally 10 to 25 times more money is going to be invested. This is invested. This is where business people come in. This isn't give it away. This isn't government grants. This is invested. More money is going to be invested into businesses that know how to do clean energy than anything we've ever done in history. That's why I'm in the business. I love it.
I think sometimes those numbers are just intimidating. So I was with a friend of mine who owns Score International Racing Baja 1000
Oh, cool.
off-road series, but he also owns a bunch of land in northern Nevada, and he leases that land to Tesla. He says, they were building a 16 million square foot facility up there. Like 16 million. That's no. And he's like, God, they stopped at 12 million to move to Texas. Like that's unbelievable because you start thinking about these numbers and you just put them out of your mind because they're too big to fathom. But I think that's what happens with renewable energy too. Is you just put it out of your mind like I don't know anything about it, so let me put it out there.
The cool thing that I always bring it back to with people, whether you're conservative or you're progressive, whatever your politics are, the one thing that we're talking about here is not square feet, it's not trillions of dollars, it's jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And every political stripe loves it when their voters get jobs. Every American loves getting jobs, right? Especially a hardworking, good-paying job. And this is going to create more jobs than anything we've ever done. It's going to create them across all 50 states. And so that's another big reason I got into this, because I'm looking at this thinking, nobody's talking about this. Everyone's talking about climate this, climate that. That's a great debate. Go ahead and have it. But this is jobs, this is money, this is investments, and nobody's talking about it. And that's why I decided to kind of throw away a perfectly good career in software tech and go chase this so that I could tell people this story that, hey, you're getting it wrong. It used to be about the environment. Now it's about money and jobs.
Yeah. So, everybody's got an interesting story, and you've told some of yours. Here you are in energy now. And I love that when I have guests on this show that can bring some value to our listeners today, right? Everybody's got a little bit of a struggle post-COVID. We're in the middle of a recession, which could get a lot worse before it gets better. And I think people are looking for opportunities to make their way. You talk about jobs, find jobs, create jobs, and make a difference in your lives. Can we talk about your book and the business opportunities that you find in this free energy world?
Absolutely, man. That's I think, and the cool thing about this the clean energy, and the part that I focus on, is the small systems, right? The ones that you put on your roof or in your field or on a school or a church. Those are where the biggest number of jobs and the largest number of entrepreneurial opportunities exist, because the good or bad of the energy industry, and particularly the electricity industry, is that for a century it's pretty much unchanged. It's run entirely by monopoly utilities. They have no competition. They have terrible customer satisfaction. They don't care because if you're most places in the U.S., if you're going to buy electricity, you got to have one company.
Mm-hmm.
And most Americans spend an average 10 minutes a year thinking about their electricity bill because there's not a darn thing they can do about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's really fun about this local energy, I call it, is that all of a sudden you have competition. You want to put solar on your roof, you can call 10 firms and they can compete for your business. And the government, the U.S. government, I don't know when this podcast is going to come out, but hopefully soon. And the U.S. government is pretty close to doing the first thing it's done in 20 years, and it's called the Inflation Reduction Act. And I'm not a politician; I don't like any of that stuff. But I can tell you one thing: is it's going to create a lot of jobs. So if you're depending where you are in your life, if you're early in your career and you're just looking to do something that's meaningful, the number of people that you need to sell, manage, project manage, install, plan, design, millions and millions and millions of solar systems and battery systems on churches and malls and schools and houses and buildings. I mean, I'm not exaggerating saying millions of jobs. So if people are thinking that they want to do something different, this is a great field to look at. And as of the last week or two, it's about to take off. But then there's other people, and more of the people that I wrote the book for, that are people that want to be innovators. They want to do something risky. They want to be disruptive. They want to be part of a change. And so the book, really, Freeing Energy, really talks about how do you, as an entrepreneur, as a small investor or a big investor, participate in this revolution that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 50 ideas in the back of the book that are each multiple billions of dollars a year each. And so some of them are inventing new products. Some of them are solving financing challenges. Some of them are building out the firms that install this stuff. There's just a whole, we can talk about them wherever you like, but there's just so many job opportunities, investment opportunities for people. It's crazy. It's a fun time. I feel like I'm the guy that said, hey, there's this thing, internet, coming. You should take a look at this internet thing.
Yeah.
That's what I feel like.
Well, first of all, I want to brag on Montana for a second. My listeners know I live here. We have our energy company is a co-op. We actually get money back once in a while, which is crazy.
I love it.
Well, I came from California, and it's August right now. My electric bill in August in Southern California would be about $650 to $700 for the month, right? Two-story house, not even that big, 1,800 square feet, two-story house. It'd be about $650 to $700. We run the air. I got kids. It's hot. Here, my electrical bill and my AC unit here is 2 times the size of the one down there, $150, and I'll probably get money back at the end of the year. So they've done a fabulous job. But what's interesting, and hopefully I'm going down the road that you're going to be able to help people with is being small and self-sufficient on these things. Even here, there could be an eventual crisis because the way that our structure is set up with some legislation that passed years ago. The water here is controlled by the reservations, which means the dams that are producing the power right now are only running at 1/3 of their capacity.
Oh, wow.
So if we're sitting at that right now, what happens if they start selling energy to the next highest bidder outside of state? All of a sudden, we're going to get jacked up. So, there's always a need to find alternatives. And again, that's what I was attracted to when I saw your bio and what you do is what are some of the alternatives out there to energy? The other thing, maybe you can speak on this, I live outside of town. We've got a bunch of property with a bunch of animals. Most people where I live, all they talk about is being self-sustainable, right?
Yes.
So we've got a well on our property. We're installing a hand pump in case the power goes down. We have a generator in case we need that. We have cattle for food. But the one thing that you're always concerned about is where do we power up this house, right? And there's not a lot of solar. I can see rooftops from my house here. No solar in sight. So what are your thoughts about people being a little bit more self-sustaining in these small units you're talking about?
Montana is a fantastic example, right? You do have pretty cheap electricity. I just looked it up as you were saying. That's 10 or 11 cents a kilowatt hour on average. Which is well below the national average. Like out in California, we're probably paying 30 cents a kilowatt hour. But you got these large sprawling properties. You got people with a strong personal sense of resilience and independence. And for anyone who's living in Montana, I'll tell you right now that if you put up solar panels on your roof, there's a really good chance that your electricity bill, A, is going to go down even below what it already is. And B, if you add batteries to it, which does add some cost, you can be off grid perpetually.
Yeah.
Especially if you have a generator. Because I don't live in Montana. I've been there. Absolutely beautiful place. but occasionally you're going to get a couple streaks of rainy days. Your solar panels and batteries are going to be depleted. You want to fall back to that generator. But for the most part, the solar and batteries can power any size house, especially as sunny as it is there,
Mm-hmm.
forever. I mean, it's not even like a generator where you're worried about fuel; it'll just run forever.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, and the reason people probably don't have panels is that 4 years ago they called somebody up and said, "Hey, I want to put panels on my roof," and the person said, "Well, it's going to cost you this," and they're like, "Well, that's too much money." And they just told their friends, and it became common knowledge among everybody in the community that it's too expensive. Well, the price of this stuff's going down 10, 15, 20% every single year.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't do it in 2022, you do it in 2024, it's going to cost even less. But that's something that drives the big utilities crazy, because never in history have they had competition.
Yeah.
If you're in Montana and you want to build a coal plant to self-power your house, you don't have $500 million to build that. But you certainly might be able to get a loan for $30,000 to power your house. And from then on, you're self-powered. And after you pay it off 6-7 years, it's a free electricity forever.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, we're talking about solar panels and batteries here. Is that the foundational element of your opinion of free and energy, and is that the
Absolutely.
opportunities?
Yeah. Again, people come at this with a century-old perspective. And when we think about energy, whether it's pushing our cars forward or lighting our houses, we think about it in terms of fuels, natural gas, or in your case, hydropower. So no fuel there, but in most cases it's fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And the trick with solar and batteries, not wind, not hydropower, but solar and batteries are technologies. And what that means is you can make them by the billion in factories. You can't do that with any other source of energy ever invented. And so I'd like to tell people you get your head around the fact that if you make more of something, it gets cheaper, right? Everyone kind of gets that intuitively. In Moore's law, if you know the computer world, more transistors on a chip. So this is intuitive to people from the technology space. So you think about energy generation. Some quick stats. Right? How many nuclear plants have we made in the history of humanity? We've made about 440.
Mm-hmm.
Not many at all. And that's why nuclear is actually going up in price, because we make so few of them and they're so hard and long to make, even though they have some big benefits. But we've made about 2,500 coal plants. Those are also kind of stuck in price.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, because natural gas, we can make them smaller because we build natural gas plants off of plane engines. People don't know that, but similar turbine technology. So now you're talking about 10,000 natural gas plants. Those are actually going down in price. Wind turbines, we've made 500,000 wind turbines. That's why wind keeps going down, because we make them in factories. You have to bust them, you have to put them on trucks and bring them out, but you can make them in factories. And you make it in a factory, 500,000 of these things in a factory, and build big factories, prices go down. Well, as of last year, across the U.S. and the world, we've made 120 billion solar cells.
Wow!
So these things have dropped by 400 times in the last 40 years, and the thing is, they're going to continue to drop because we're going to make another 100 billion in the next 7 or 8 years, and we're building factories. And if this law gets passed that they're talking about, we're actually going to start building in the U.S. again with U.S. jobs and U.S. products, which I love personally.
Yeah.
So solar and batteries are the same. You make them by the billions, and make iPhones by the billions. The prices just continue to go down. So this is the reason why this is so disruptive, because they're technology. Solar and batteries are technologies. They're getting cheaper. They have gotten cheaper. They're going to keep getting cheaper. And so if no one in Montana today is putting solar up because it's cost X, it's going to cost X divided by 2, half X, within 6 or 7 years. And so everybody is going to have solar panels when you look out your window in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's only people, and the people that are going to wait a couple of years and be like, darn, I could have been saving money on my electric bill immediately.
Right. Well, let's just talk through this as a business opportunity, right? So I'm listening to you. I'm going, okay, yeah, I like to make money, right? Why not? I've got a long laundry list of friends and neighbors that want to be off the grid. Right.
Yeah.
That's just where they're at. Hey, we got to get off the grid. We don't want to rely on the government. It's Montana mentality. But look,
I love that.
There's a ton of open space across this country, right? It's not just Montana. Even in California, which is overly populated, there's a ton of open space. So when you think about what you're talking about, right? So I'm sitting here going, okay, I could imagine a lot of people around me could use solar. They want to be off the grid. So there's my angle to sell in some solar. What are my next steps? Am I going to go find the big solar panel distributor and get a sales job for them? Am I going to start a business on my own? Am I going to source it? Where's that opportunity at? I mean, where the rubber hits the road, where's that opportunity?
Yes to everything you said and 10 times more,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, um, let me ask you: has anyone given you a call or knocked on your door or sent you a letter saying, "Hey, Jim, here's how much money you could save by putting solar on your house"? Has anyone
No,
done that to you?
nope, nope. And I
So
go to
then,
I go to the home show every year. I haven't seen any solar guys there either.
well, I don't know the specifics of Montana laws, but I'm going to guess that there's a big business opportunity to start helping people in Montana get solar. And I just got an email this morning from a friend of mine, and he said, "Listen, I quit my job in the biomedical industry, and I'm starting a solar installation company."
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, whether you run it or you work there, if you're in sales, if you're an extrovert, go knock on doors, make phone calls, build community programs. Uh, and I think it's important to point out there's a really big difference between the solar panels that are covering the giant deserts or fields or farms that you
Yeah.
see on the highway, because those are owned by giant corporations and the utilities. And well, I guess that's fine. That's not my personal thing. I think that I love the notion of resilience. I love that the house I'm talking to you in right now, Jim, is solar powered. This Zoom call is solar powered. If the electricity and the grid goes out here, I don't even notice it.
Yeah.
And when you think about Montana, I live in the suburban area, but in Montana, you probably have acres of fields around you. You just put a tiny number of solar panels, 40 or 50 solar panels. And by the way, there's a ton of places that will help you, give you DIY to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You might want an electrician to connect it to your house just to be safe, but you can do 90% of the installation yourself. But people don't want to do it, so that's a business opportunity. Start a company, join a company that's installing solar all over the Midwest where you are. It's the first and most obvious thing to do. But then there's the whole supply chain. Like, how do we get the solar panels for the best price? Most of them are made in China today. Hopefully not in 2 or 3 years, but today they're made in China. So how do I get them over here? How do I make sure the quality is good? How do I design these systems so they're safe? Talking about a lot of electricity. They don't look like they're doing much. They're just sitting there, but they're generating a lot of electricity. You touch it with your wet finger, you're dead. So you got to make sure that it's designed by someone that knows what they're doing. You got to hire those people, train those people, um, and you got to service it.
Yeah.
All these are jobs. All these are opportunities for entrepreneurs. So, I have I'm very fortunate. We have a home in the north part of Georgia, very rural. Everyone's got 20, 30, 40 acres. We don't have the beautiful mountains you guys have, but it's I've got plenty of room. I have solar panels out there, and once a year I go wash them to keep them clean, so they'll generate more. I don't really have to, but like if I could pay someone $500 to do it, I would.
Yeah.
Right? Give someone a local job, and it's not hard to do, but it needs to be done. So that even those opportunities exist. So much, and if you're telling me no one's knocking on your door, um, someone's missing a business opportunity out where you live.
Well, they would try to get at me somehow. We don't have a lot of door knocking out here because we have open carry, right?
Send you.
Like I'm not going to that door. You might have a gun.
I love it.
What's interesting, the thing that you're talking about is what I talk about as being the biggest opportunity in a lot of these emerging categories, and that's the pick and shovel business, right? When you think about the gold rush, you either found gold or you didn't, but you know who made all the money? The guys selling the picks and the shovels. We got the green rush with cannabis, and most of those guys that are selling cannabis are blowing themselves up. But I guarantee you the guys selling the fertilizer and the lights and the bins and all the picks and shovels of cannabis are making a fortune. So what you're talking about is, we've got solar business, but the guys doing the installs, servicing, even washing the panels, the picks and shovels of that business. There's opportunity up and down that street.
Man, you are nailing it. In fact, the last chapter of my book, I actually use that phrase.
Mm-hmm.
And people ask me, what are the hottest areas? I say, a lot of stuff's risky. You invent a new physics, chemistry thing for batteries. Maybe you're going to be successful, maybe you won't. But if you're in the picks and shovels business, one of the biggest gold rushes in the history of the country, and you don't mind some hard work, it's there's just no downside.
It's interesting because I've never been a solar panel guy. And, like probably like everybody else, right? $60,000 to put it on your house. And, So you don't bite the bullet there, but you're happy to spend $650 a month on electricity, like I already admitted to. But and I think some of it is because we don't necessarily understand the nature of how it works, and how those flat panels soaking up sun can really power my house the way that I feel like I need it. But I just bought $100 solar panel at Costco for my trailer. And I bought it because we were out camping last month. My battery drained overnight. The charger didn't work that you plug into the truck, or the generator that didn't work. It's like, shoot, my battery is 100% drained. I need a new battery now because it's just dead, 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 right? And with that being dead, I didn't necessarily need the power overnight, but your carbon monoxide sensor is going beep, beep, because it only ran off the smallest trickle of the battery. So all of a sudden, here I am in a position where, like, darn it, I wish I had something that would have generated just enough power to keep that battery alive, to keep that carbon monoxide sensor from going off all night, keeping me awake, right? So I'm like, my neighbor camper's like, dude, where's your solar panel? I'm like, I don't have one. He goes, well, go get one. They have them at Costco for $100. All of a sudden, problem solved, right? Battery stays charged, trailer stays working, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. Multiply that times 100, I've got my house, right? So in theory, I think we understand that. And by the way, there's a lot of trailers I can see in my neighborhood. So I know they probably all have solar panels on them. It just makes sense. When we really think about other applications that's easy to understand, like the trailer, why wouldn't it work for your home?
Yeah, I think it's like electric vehicles today. A lot of people were skeptical that do I really want one? It sounds complicated, it's expensive. But you know what? 4 years ago they were expensive. Now they're getting less expensive, and in 5 years they're going to be less expensive again. And most people that have driven in one are like, "This is the funnest thing I've ever driven in my life." Didn't have any idea how fun it'd be, and hauls butt. And so I think we're a couple of years behind on the same realization that solar's kind of obvious. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's a better product at a better price. There really is nothing else to it.
I'll get a Tesla when they have a recording of a Hemi V8. When I'm driving down the road, instead of the fart noise they have currently. Okay, which
Yeah.
is cute, by the way. Um, you know, okay. So to continue the conversation on the application of solar, right? So my brother, he went down the solar route. He has the Tesla panels. He's got he built this house, rebuilt his house. It's 1 foot thick walls. I mean, this guy, he doesn't have to turn on anything to save energy, but he gets to sell power back. And I know he's in the city where there's that option. Do you know much about that, or what can you tell our listeners about the ability to sell power back when you're providing more than what you need?
There is a single issue in the solar world that is more contentious, that is more generates more anger and division, and it's that simple question of what does the utility have to pay you for selling it back?
Mm-hmm.
It's politicized, it's weaponized. I mean, people go berserk over this. California was really famous because they were initially very generous, like you kind of expect California to be, like, hey, let's who cares about the utilities? Let's help the people. And then did a complete 180 about 6 months ago, and people were protesting, and the governor, and it was crazy how contentious this gets. Florida, they passed the legislators passed a law basically making solar the payback so low that solar would have taken 15 years to pay for itself, and Ron DeSantis vetoed it. And he says, "Listen, people in Florida want solar. It's and so this is the hot topic, and it varies by where you live."
Mm-hmm.
And so there are 3,000 utilities in the country. About 100 of them are the really big ones, like Georgia Power, or we probably had PG&E. Another 1,000 are the EMCs, the cooperatives like you've got there in Montana. I have my house in North Georgia is on the Hart County cooperative. Those guys tend to be pretty reasonable. The big utilities like Georgia Power, they tend to be shareholders first, but the
Mm-hmm.
cooperatives, people don't know this. You may not know this, but you actually are a member. It's an actual real cooperative. And if you want to run for office
Yep.
and be on the board, you can. And so they still tend to be pretty conservative because they've been doing it that way for 100 years, and they're not always the first companies to say let's do something new. But if you and 100 of your friends think you should do something more aggressive with solar to save some money for you guys, the cooperatives that's the best place to be. So those typically the cooperatives are taking the standard thing where they're going to charge you, I think it's 12. Let's call it 11 cents a kilowatt hour where you live. That's the average in Montana. I looked it up, and they might pay you 4 or 5 cents back.
Mm-hmm.
But like in Florida, they're going to probably end up paying much closer to the amount that the Floridians pay the utility. In Georgia, we go back and forth, but I currently get paid by the utility what I pay them. So it works out to about 12 cents. We're also pretty cheap here in Georgia. So I pay the utility about 12 cents a kilowatt hour, and they pay me 12 cents. But the state only allowed 5,000 people into that program. I got lucky, totally lucky, got into it. And if you install solar here, you're only going to get paid 4 or 5 cents. I don't know the number, but this is the contentious issue. But just to get one of the big differences with the U.S. and everywhere else in the world, a lot of places else in the world, is that the U.S. they're only going to let you sell a certain amount back. Pretty much, they don't want to buy more than you're going to use as a household.
Right.
Whereas, I have some friends in Germany and Australia, they have fields and they just put up giant solar panels. They sell all of it back, and that's actually a business.
Yeah, good for them.
I love it. In the U.S., that is absolutely illegal. Like if you and your friends said, "Hey, listen, Bob, I'm going to put a big 4 times the size I need solar panels on my field, and you are going to put 5 times the battery power that you need in your field, and together we're going to join arms and sell to our neighbors," that is 100% illegal in the United States. Really, the United States has got the most locked down, uncompetitive, screw people that want to be independent set of laws of any country in the world, which is so the opposite of what you'd expect, but that is the fact.
Yeah, absolutely. I never knew that because, we're the land of opportunity, right? It sounds like a good business to me.
Well, the utilities utilities do great work. We need them. They electrify the country, particularly in the Midwest. They brought electricity to people that lived in Montana and everywhere else that didn't have it 100 years ago. But they have a great business model. Their profits are guaranteed, including your cooperative. Their profits are guaranteed. If they screw up, they just charge more. Satisfaction with customers is usually pretty low because there's no competition. But you go to Australia, you go to Japan, you go to Europe, a lot of other places. If you don't like what the utility is doing, a couple of you and your friends get together, you put up your own solar panels, and you sell electricity to your neighbors. And the U.S. will eventually do that because we're just going to be shamed into doing it. But no other country has utilities that are as politically powerful as we have here in the U.S.
Interesting.
I live in a red state, and I know many people at Georgia Power. I respect them and I like them. But we have a lot of people that feel similarly to what you described in Montana. They said, "Let me do my own thing. Let me be independent. Let me make money the way I want to make it. Let me take care of my family the way I want." I think we have that in common as states. And there's such an irony that of all the areas in Georgia where the government says, "Listen, people can do what they want." When it comes to electricity, Montana, Georgia can't do it. Utilities control it 100%. You can't be innovative. You can't take care of yourself. You can't sell it to your neighbor. And that's got to change. So hopefully some of your listeners are going to go pay attention to the public utility commissions and things like that, because that's where this is going to change.
Yeah.
I don't know what your friend votes for, but tell her to give you guys some independence and let people make their own way and sell to their neighbors.
Well, she's the top-rated doctor in our in our area, Dr. Annie Bukacek, private practice, and she was the #1 advocate, probably in the state, for the freedom of choice on mask mandates and vaccines. So she already fought that fight, big fight for her, and now she's moving into power, which I'm so proud of her. So you know what? We're going to bring it up to her and see what she has to say. Because it's interesting. I never realized that before, that there was such a monopoly on power. I was so enamored when I got here and my bill was so low. And then the fact, I don't care if they gave me 1 penny back, it's more than California ever gave me, But what I did notice is this cooperative, they're very friendly and open and transparent, and we get to vote on the board, and they have actually sent out, if you're interested in being a board member, here's how you apply, and here's when.
That's unusual. That's impressive.
Yeah, they send out a monthly newsletter that's very informative and talks about Montana as a whole. So I've been very impressed with the energy up here and how they approach it. But I've been on the exact opposite of that, living in Newport Beach, California, most of my life, right? So, middle of a hard city. Let me ask you something. Again, bringing some value to our listeners and people wanting to make money. What would be a first? So somebody's listening to the show and now they're excited about solar. Okay, I want to go get a job. I want to go make money in solar. Besides getting your book, Freeing Energy, okay, that's step
Thank you.
number one. What's step number two to get involved in this solar, industry? Like literally, is there any companies that you would recommend they call? Do they just do an internet search and find out who the solar companies are that are selling in the area? Apply for a job? Is there certain commission rates that would be good? What are their next steps, or how do they start to go down that road?
If they're entrepreneurs, it sounds like if they live in the Midwest, they should just start their own company and hire people and build it. But not everyone's wants to start that way. So my cousin Chris wanted to get into solar. He was excited about it, and he lives in Florida, good state for solar. And he started just looking around and ran a couple of companies he was looking at by me. I didn't know them, but you can go online. There's rating. There's probably, I'm going to guess in Florida there's hundreds of installers and certainly 30 or 40 big ones. I don't know about Montana, but there's great sites like energysage.com. I send everybody there, whether you want to put solar on your roof or you're thinking about getting a job, go to Energy Sage and see who the top solar installers are in your region. And there's two kinds of solar installers, and they're different. So you got to think there's the kind that focus on homes, which is a very different business. It's like installing air conditioners or plumbers. You got to go into people's homes. You got to have that personality. And then there's also commercial, and the industry calls it C&I, commercial and industrial. And those folks put solar and solar and batteries on buildings and churches and government buildings. And that's more longer contracts, more sophisticated buyers, a lot of spreadsheets. So, but both are growing very quickly. So Energy Sage talks about both of these companies. Go look, see how they're rated. So if you think I want to work in the commercial side because I have a good network in the business community, or I want to help people, so I want to work in the residential side, and go look who's ranked well. And this is what my cousin did, and he just basically started reaching out to, and everyone's hiring. Everybody's hiring. I mean, this isn't like I got to know someone to get in the door. And you just apply, and if you network your way in. And my cousin's like, what should I do? He's a lot younger than me. He's a strong guy, can climb roofs, but I said, you're an extrovert, man. You should go into sales. So he applied. He joined a firm, wasn't the right one for him. So he just joined a second one about 2 months ago, loves this one. And the thing that he was telling me was that they're training him. I mean, they're teaching him fundamental business selling skills. So they're investing him in a way that he had never seen before in his career, because these guys want him to stay. They want him to be better. The industry's on fire. So he's a great example of what you can do in Florida. I suspect the same in Montana and everywhere in the country.
Oh yeah. And by the way, I'm sure getting hired in this industry is much better than getting a job for the IRS right now. So,
I mean, depending on how you're wired, right? I mean, everyone's different, but for a lot of people, particularly young people, like they're worried about the future, and they're worried about what's the country going to be like, and you get into solar, and if your concern is the planet, you're doing something about it every day. If your concern's about independence and freedom, you're doing something about it every day. And so and personally, I was in software tech and marketing for most of my career, and it was alluring. It was like people said, why don't you just stay in it? You're established or successful. Why would you go do this? Because I said, I want to do something that has more meaning than just a job. I don't want to be asking myself just how much money am I making, or where am I in my career ladder. I want to be saying, am I making a difference towards the future?
yeah.
And the great thing about this industry, and the reason I got into it, I threw away a perfectly good career in software tech, was to check the box every morning. What I do matters I'm making the world a better place every single day.
Yeah.
And even if I don't close that sale, or I don't get my company funded, or whatever I'm working on, I'm still on a journey, which I feel great about. It's different than anything I've ever experienced, and I'm so glad I did it.
Well, what's interesting about solar too is, you think, oh, it's, money making scheme, or however you want to look at it. And yes, as we've talked about, it's a business, but the level of comfort that you get knowing that you have power resources if something were to happen. Yeah, we've got blue skies here in Montana, lots of sunshine half the year, but we also get some crazy storms and wind and reasons for that power to go down. What happens then? You've got a baby in the crib, and a couple other kids running around that need to be fed and all
Yeah.
these things. Well,
And you're working from home, right? You're working from home. You got a job.
that's right.
You need to pay for that stuff. And Texas is waking up to this. Louisiana is waking up to this. Is you probably remember last winter
Yeah.
or winter ago, Texas got shut down. Their whole grid went offline, and every week right now, as the temperatures are soaring, everyone in Texas is worried the grid's going to go down again. And thousands of people have died in the U.S. because grids have gone down in small ways from heat stroke.
Yep.
So you put solar and batteries. You got to have batteries to operate. It's kind of a crazy electrical nerdy thing, but you have to have batteries too, and that does raise the price. But when you have solar and batteries, not only do you run when the grid is down, but you don't even need electricity from the grid 90% of the time. It's incredible independence. That's what I've got here, and I love it. I'm using my batteries, powering my house 80-90% of the time. It's awesome.
I'm thinking about the 4 freezers of beef and elk I've got in the garage. Power goes down. I'm protecting those first, right?
You're right, and you can go somewhere along there with a generator, right?
Yeah.
So if it only happens once in a while, a generator's decent for people super concerned about the climate. They struggle with that, but this is not used a lot.
Yeah.
And then generators don't run very long. But if you got a situation like Texas where you risk being offline for 4 or 5 days, tremendous number of generators fail in that scenario. It's kind of interesting. If you look at the companies that are doing the most impressive off-grid stuff, a shocking number of them are run by people from the military, and particularly people that have been in submarines, because these are totally self-contained power systems. And the consequences of the power system failing are everyone dies. And so they have a mindset, the discipline, and the vision to understand. So when you build these systems that are incredibly resilient, you hope you never need them, but when you do, it can change your life.
So, completely random question: customer of solar power, schools. Are you seeing many schools get on solar power?
It is a tsunami. It is growing so fast. And there was a really big reason why. So the pros and cons, schools adopting it everywhere because it's just cheaper. I mean, it's as simple as that, right? Schools have a lot of land. They have a lot of roofs, usually flat roofs, super easy to put solar on. 4 years ago, it might have been a break even on the costs. Today, it's going to save them money. But the biggest problem with schools is that historically has been that because they're a nonprofit, they can't take the tax deductions that come with solar. And by the way, just to be clear, it's in my book, coal, gas, nuclear all have massive tax deductions. So solar sometimes gets singled out for getting tax deductions, but every kind of energy. And I've sat down with people who work in Congress and done all the numbers. The amount of tax deductions that solar get are smaller than what fossil fuels get, but it's just not as easy to point to it because it's more built into the tax code. But that said, the tax code has typically for solar, because it was the weakest political way to do it, was to just make it a tax break, right? If you build it, you can hire some people, you're going to pay for some stuff, so we're just going to lower your taxes. But if you don't pay taxes, like a school or a church, you can't save. So that was a hindrance. And with this new law that they're threatening to pass in the next couple of days, is they're allowing schools and churches to be included in the tax break situation. So I think we're going to see starting next week, the week after, sometime maybe in September, we're going to see schools and churches and community centers take off, government centers. So if you're a government, like the downtown police station, fire station, municipal buildings in your town, they couldn't get the tax breaks. This is all going to change because of the new federal legislation. Wow. So it's making it fair. Yeah. They're making it fair for everybody.
Yeah. Well, what a great show and discussion. I hope that people listen to this and grab your book, Freeing Energy, and learn a little bit more about how they can be independent. And, if you're concerned about the climate and what's going on out there, then there's an opportunity to share in that that exercise.
I don't use the term climate change anywhere in the book.
Yeah.
Because I don't want anyone to think this was about, environment first. I care about it personally, but that's not why I wrote the book, right?
Yeah.
I wrote it for people that care about making money, being in business, taking care of themselves. That's who the book's for. So Yeah, listen, if you're concerned about climate change, go do this stuff. But you're probably already doing it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I want to talk to people that haven't thought about it yet. I want to meet your neighbors. Tell them, hey, you can save some money today and get some
Oh,
resilience.
don't come to my area. I'm going to sell to my neighbors before you get here.
Thank you.
Bill, where can they find your book at and learn more about you and what you're doing and follow along?
Well, thanks for asking. We'll give you some links you can put on your site post, but freeingenergy.com has it all. Freeing Energy. And if you want to read about the book immediately, go to freeingenergybook.com, or you just go to Amazon. And a lot of people don't like Amazon, so pretty much any bookstore you can name will sell the book. It's done really, really well. I'm really excited, and people seem to be receiving the message very favorably.
Well, if you don't jump on this opportunity, I am, and most of you know me. I'll probably do it. So, Bill, thank you so much. Look forward to reading the book and learning more about freeing energy.
Thank you, Jim. It's been great to be here.
Thank you for listening to today's show. It is my pleasure and honor to interview all of the guests that have been on the Answer is Yes podcast. If you have enjoyed the show, please go on iTunes and subscribe, give a rating, or simply tell a friend about the show. We also believe in the message of our guests and the positive influence of their stories. As my own mentor and coach, David Meltzer, has taught me, spend some time every day thinking and writing about the things in your own life that you have more than enough of. You will find out how blessed we really are. Please visit my website, livelifedriven.com, for the latest updates about me and what I'm doing. Plus, I post a monthly blog about the many topics on this show. This podcast can also be found there. As I learned early on in life, what you believe is what you will achieve. Thanks, Mark Victor Hansen, and thank you, and have a great week.